So Jesus offers living water. So here, the people are constantly trying to satisfy a spiritual thirst. They're trying to satisfy it usually with temporal things or temporary things, and only Christ is going to be able to provide the living water. So this morning we're going to look at how Jesus describes himself as the source of living water, and that is going to be something that changes the person completely from the inside. So where do people go today? Where do people go today to find satisfaction or peace or fulfillment? Work, yeah, entertainment. Oh, we have friends. Drugs. It's like a numbing, like just numb the pain away. Is this a new concept or something since the beginning of time? Yeah. The example that we read about this morning, relationships. The story we're going to read is Jesus and the woman at the well. She's been married 5 times. Just like, you're not, like, my spouse isn't making me happy. Maybe it's the next one. Maybe it's the next one. Maybe it's the next one. So there is a need in us all, a spiritual need, looking for satisfaction and peace and fulfillment. Water, when I was thinking about this lesson, how much easier is it for us to get water than it would be for those in ancient times? When I had to Google how often would people go to a well to get water? How often do you think that would be? Daily. So, I'm so far removed from it. I was like, every 3 days. Maybe it's like mowing the lawn. Apparently, it's like doing the laundry. Like doing the laundry every single day or doing the dishes. It's like, man, that would just be very repetitive. A 5-gallon bucket of water weighs about 40 to 45 pounds. When people would go and get their daily water, from what I read, it was between 2 to 3 gallons. So it's just a 20 pounds back and forth every day. Sometimes they'd have to go multiple times a day, just depending on how it is. So people living, during Jesus' time really understood how important water is, mostly just like a daily chore, a daily grind. Finding a clean and fresh and easy water source was very important. If you could find, a spring or a well or a river, that was obviously much more desirable than any other source of stagnant water. Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. No, I appreciate it. Thank you. No, that's really good. So it's just, in ancient life, getting water, finding water, being able to maintain it was a lot more crucial or hard than it is for us today. We're going to go ahead and turn to John chapter 4. We're going to read through verses 5 through 15. Jesus left Judea and went away again into Galilee, and he had to pass through Samaria. So he came to a city of Samaria called Sychar, near the parcel of ground that Jacob gave his son Joseph. And Jacob's well was there. So Jesus, being wearied from his journey, was sitting thus by the well. It was about the 6th hour, and there came a woman of Samaria to draw water. Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink." For his disciples had gone away into the city to buy food. Therefore the Samaritan woman had said to him, "How is it that you, being a Jew, asked me for a drink, since I am a Samaritan woman?" for Jews have no dealings with Samaritans." Jesus answered and said to her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is who says to you, 'Give me a drink,' you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." She said to him, "Sir, you have nothing to draw with, and the well is very deep. Where then do you get that living water? You are not greater than our father Jacob, are you, who gave us the well and drank of it himself, and his sons and his cattle?" Jesus answered and said to her, "Everyone who drinks of this water will thirst again. But whoever drinks of the water that I will give him shall never thirst. But the water that I give will become in him a well of water springing up to eternal life." The woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water so I will not be thirsty, nor come all the way down here to draw again." All right. So that's the story of Jesus at the well. What does this tell us about who Jesus is, or who Jesus seeks out? What does this story tell us about who Jesus seeks out? Those that need saving. Yeah. He goes towards broken people. So I think one thing that strikes me is, just he's not avoiding people whose life looks like they're a mess. He's heading towards them. He's finding time to go where they are, to seek them out. Yeah. Yep. No, I think that's really good. Blessed are those who thirst for righteousness. So one thing in studying for this lesson, Jesus is coming from Judea, and he's heading towards Galilee. And so you would think a natural path would be going through Samaria, but that is not the case. Generally, what Jews would do is they would cross over the other side of the Jordan and go to Perea. They would travel up the Jordan River on the east side of the Jordan River. When they got beyond Samaria, then they would cross the river again and come to Galilee. And so for us, it looks like it's out of the way and not the desirable path. From what I can tell, has anybody been to Israel? Bill, do you remember if they still do this by chance if you were driving in a car? Okay. So this is based on a blog I read, so take it with a grain of salt. But from what I've read on this blog that someone had been to this part of the world, their cab driver, they were in Judea and they were going to Galilee. And the cab driver would do the exact same thing. He would cross over into Perea, he would go up the east side of the Jordan, and he would cross back into Galilee. And when he asked him, why is that? He said, the license plate, so Samaria is current-day Palestine. And so the Palestinians do not want the Israelis coming and going freely in their land. And so he said, our license plates are tagged and stamped with different colors. And so depending on what your license plate looks like, you can try to go from Judea to Galilee through Palestine, but there will be roadblocks and blockades and paperwork. So even today, it's just more common, more easy, more convenient for Jewish people to go over, cross over to the Jordan, go up the Jordan, and cross back over. And what we read from Jesus is in verse 15, or verse 4. He had to pass through Samaria. I think that's just a really powerful message for us because he didn't really have to. It was actually uncommon. It was uncommon for him to pass through Samaria. But he made a mental note and made a mental effort to go there. It's like he had a mission in mind to talk to this one specific person who was seeking Jesus to talk to her. um, while we have the map up, I do have one quick funny story. So one Bible class I was teaching, and I was trying to find, on this one, I was trying to find Jacob's well. So there's a time where I would go to Google Maps, and if you would type in Google Maps, you can just like drop a person in there and start seeing around. So I was on Google Maps, and I typed in Jacob's well. And there's a guy standing there, like an American tourist with shorts, and he's kind of standing what looks like in the desert. And this well is just not what I imagined at all. It's like almost like a spring. And I was like laughing, and I was like, this is not what I was expecting. This is amazing. I need to screen grab this and put it up on the PowerPoint slide so everybody, this is not what I was expecting Jacob's well to do. So I start zooming out, and then I read the words, San Antonio. And I just started laughing, and Vivian's like, what are you laughing? What's got you so hysterical? And I was like, Vivian, I almost screen grabbed this picture of a nice family tourist destination in Texas and pronounced it as Jacob's well up here. So I did find, after kind of searching a little bit more, we think that Jacob's well is still around. It's in an Orthodox church, and it is what you would more expect it to be, just a hole in the ground and not a spring in Texas. But anyway, so going back to the story of Jesus meeting the Samaritan woman. Why do temporary things never fully satisfy us? Why do temporary things never fully satisfy us? So what makes them temporary? Yeah, not made to last. Physical, yeah, eternity-shaped goal can't be filled with physical, temporary items. Yeah, no, I think that's good. Yeah, I think that's really good. So what does it mean to never thirst? What does it mean to never thirst? Can you imagine what that would feel like? Never thirst. No, I appreciate it. Yeah. Okay. No, that's really good. Thank you. So when I think about never thirsting, it's to me, I always think about things like in my life that I once coveted, but then there comes a point where you just no longer do. It's like that is no longer attractive to me. It's no longer a need. Um, that's just what comes to my mind about never thirsty. Yeah, yeah, a fulfillment of you found your home. Yeah, I think Jesus' main point is seeking out the spiritual things and not seeking out the physical things. Any other thoughts or yeah, yeah, yeah. God created a soul that needs to be filled, and you can never fill that soul with temporary physical things. It needs to be fed with godly spiritual things. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, no, I think that's good. State of mind, contentment, and what do you value? Thank you. All right. So moving on to John chapter 7, verses 37 through 39. Someone could please read that for me. I'd appreciate it. John 7, 37 through 39. Thank you. So I want us to focus on kind of the middle, or the back half of verse 38. From his innermost being will flow rivers of living water. To me, here, one of the key points is living water. When we find the living water, to me, it becomes something that flows out of us. Um, the living water that a believer finds not only fills them up, but it is also an example of overflowing, that it is flowing out of them almost. So from his innermost being will flow the rivers of living water. So when I read that, to me, it's when we change our lives through Christ, not only are we filled up, but then we become an example to others. That can either be through encouragement or generosity or peace or serving others or forgiving others. But it's like once we are filled up, it's not just for us, it's also for sharing with others. Any thoughts or comments related to being filled and also becoming flowing out to others? Yeah, and I think that's really good. And it speaks back to the first example of the Samaritan woman. It's like when she was full, she left immediately and went to go to tell others. So it's like once you get filled up with the spiritual need, it's such a joyous moment that it overflows you to go share the good news with others. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. That's wonderful. Thank you, Corey. Anything else? Yeah, no, I think that's wonderful. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and turn to Jeremiah chapter 2. Jeremiah chapter 2 is, Jeremiah 2 is God's case against Judah and Jerusalem. And through the prophet of Jeremiah, God describes how his people abandoned him and everything that God has done for him. In Jeremiah chapter 2, God speaks about a husband whose bride has become unfaithful, or a father who has abandoned his children. And the central theme is really Israel is exchanging the living God with empty idols. And in the middle of Jeremiah 2, verses 13, he talks about this idea of living water. So in Jeremiah 2, verse 13, "For my people have committed two evils. They have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters, to hew for themselves cisterns, broken cisterns that can hold no water." So here the idea of a cistern or a broken cistern is it's not necessarily a well, but in ancient times, they would dig a hole kind of near where runoff would be. They would dig a hole, and sometimes it would be like carving it out, essentially. But the runoff would go, so they would dig the hole, the cistern, and then they would put plaster on the inside. So people would have to climb down in there and start plastering all the walls and make it waterproof. And so then this rain runoff would come into the cistern, and then the hole, they would just put like a stone on top. And when, if they didn't have a source of fresh living water, they would come here, put their bucket down into the cistern, and pull up this old, dirty rainwater. And so it was really common, and from what I read, it was almost like a backup system. Just like our first favorite thing would be a well or a natural flowing water. Our second thing would be rainwater, and if things get bad and there's a drought, then we go towards the cistern. And here God is saying, you have forsaken the living water, and you've chosen to not only to look away from the living water, you've chosen to go to the cistern, the gross, nasty, stagnant water that's been down in this pit for months. That's what you've chosen to do. And not only that, it's a leaking one. So because it's leaking, you have to send people down with their plaster and repair it. It's a never-ending repair job to make sure that the water that you're putting in here isn't leaking. The other things that I've read about cisterns is they would get a lot of like critters that would fall in there. And so there'd just be like dead animals, potentially rodents that are just in the water because it was one of the main water sources, and mice and rats would go looking for water just like humans would during times of drought. And so from what I read, these things were pretty disgusting. And yet God is saying, when you choose a life of sinfulness, it's like you turning away from the living water and going to a broken cistern. And that's the example we read about in Jeremiah chapter 2. So what are modern day broken cisterns that people still rely on today? Yeah, idols. Well, no, I think your point about just man-made, just like we create things that we think are going to satisfy our need or make us happy, and then we put those things above what the true perfect source is. I think that's really good. Yeah, yeah, no, I think that's right. Just like our knowledge is superior to his, so it doesn't have to be physical items. It could just be a way of thinking, or yeah, going to other people for advice versus going to the Lord for advice. Any other modern? Yeah, yeah. And I do think it might be even in Jeremiah chapter 2, but my thoughts are not your thoughts, and my ways are not your ways. Another key takeaway or point that I think the cistern example gives us is anything apart from God eventually leaks or disappoints or runs dry. And that it'll be a never-ending project of fixing or kind of using our own will or ideas, but ultimately anything apart from God will eventually break or disappoint or run dry. Any other thoughts or comments before we move on to it? Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. And just, you know, I also go back just to the Samaritan woman. It's just having multiple husbands. And I think about the people that I know who have had multiple spouses. It is just, to me, it's a lot of, well, that first spouse didn't make me happy, and I deserve to be happy, and so I will find someone else who will make me happy. And so it's just like, well, that's not necessarily God's intent. That God wants us to be faithful, and if we're happy while being faithful, then that's great, but faithfulness needs to come first. And I think that's really good. Thank you. Any other thoughts or comments before we move on? All right, Revelation chapter 7, verses 16 through 17. They will hunger no longer, nor thirst any more, nor will the sun beat down on them, nor any heat. For the Lamb in the center of the throne will be their shepherd, and will guide them to the springs of the water of life. And God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. I think it's a powerful message when we get to Revelation, that the one guiding us to the river of life is the Lamb. The Lamb is the one, the Lamb in the center of the throne will guide them to the springs of the water of life. So why do you think God emphasizes a lack of thirst and hunger in eternity? Why does God emphasize a lack of thirst or hunger in eternity? You don't need it. Yeah, you're full. You've been fulfilled, satisfied. Yep, you're not going to be human. The human desires and needs are no longer. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Thank you. Any other thoughts or? Mm-hmm. Yeah, as an example of what heaven will be like. Is that, yeah. No, I think that's a really good example and way to think about it. Thank you. So right now, life is marked by emotional hunger, which would be the need for love or peace or belonging. Our life is marked by spiritual thirst. We're searching for meaningful fulfillment. And right now, our life is marked by physical and emotional suffering. But in eternity, with Christ, the deepest needs are permanently satisfied. Jesus becomes the full source of comfort and care. And what we long for right now will be completely fulfilled in eternity. Some points of application for this morning. So the first point of application that I want us to consider is this idea of, do we leave our jar behind? Do we leave our jar behind? And by this, I want to go back to John chapter 4, verse 28. And it says, this is the woman at the well. And after speaking with Jesus, the woman left her water jar and went her way into town. Does that strike anybody? Strike anybody else? What did she go there for? her daily chore. When she met Jesus, what did she do? She forgot about it all. She went for water. She went away, satisfied, filled, with overflowing joy to go and tell others. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Priorities change, or excitement changes, but something has changed. But what she intended to do is not, how she left. So I guess for me, practical application: do we leave our jar behind? I think one thing that impresses me with the Samaritan woman at the well is she got so focused on spiritual things. She got so focused on spiritual things that her physical wants and needs and desires seem to go by the wayside. The point that she's not worried about her daily chore or her water. She is so focused spiritually on what she needs to do that everything else seems to take care of itself. So I think for me, when I look, it's a great example. Do we leave our jar behind? I think about the jars that we still carry, like letting go, like if we focused more time on the spiritual aspects of who we need to be, then the physical parts of our life potentially get much, much easier. So that's just the one point of application I wanted to make, is just a good example of leaving your jar behind. Any other ideas or thoughts or powerful messages about that concept of leaving your jar behind after you have met Jesus? Yeah, I think that's really good. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you. Mm. I think that's really good. Thank you. All right, the next one that I have is personal application: repairing broken cisterns. Do we spend more time repairing our broken cistern than we do going to find the source of the true living water? That one hit home for me. just the man-made objects that we spend our time and our effort and our money pouring into these things of just like, to me, it seems like we're accomplishing tasks, and we're doing work, and we make ourselves feel better. I look at all this, like, I just think about a checklist of things. Like, I'm doing work, I'm accomplishing tasks, I'm doing things, but it's all in vain because I'm spending time on a broken project instead of spending my time going after the living water. And so to me, this was one of the other points of application, is just kind of a time management. How are we spending our time? Are we spending our time chasing the living water and filling ourselves spiritually? Or are we spending more of our time repairing our broken cistern? Another part is, are we going to the well? And this is kind of two different parts. So I was hit by, Jesus going to the well, going out of his way, what was uncommon, going to a place where he knew broken people were. Are we as Christians going out, finding lost souls, going out of our comfort zone to find people? I think with the Samaritan woman, if I ran into a person who said, I'm on my 5th husband, I would have a hard time personally saying, like, well, let me talk to you about Jesus. And I don't really know why that is, except for in my mind, I almost think that sometimes I am looking for the right person. I am looking for the right person to share the message of Jesus. And Jesus is looking for broken people. He's looking for broken people to share the message of Jesus, not the right people. And that really stuck out to me just because I know there are people that I have encountered where I've almost written them off before I spent the time to teach them about Jesus. I think that's good. So after I found Jacob's Well in Texas, I thought it was so funny that I just had to put it in here at the very, very end. So if you and your family find yourself in San Antonio, it's got 500 great 5-star reviews, family-friendly, Jacob's Well. Thank you all.